Hello, and thank you for watching this January 23rd Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, the makers of Morning Farm Report. My name is Eric Snodgrass, and I'm a senior atmospheric scientist and co-founder of Agrible. There has been no shortfall of impactful weather across the United States in the last few weeks. Last week, it was a massive ice storm in the central United States, and this past week, it was severe weather across the southeast. Well, by midweek last week, the pieces were coming together to produce a dangerous early season outbreak of severe weather, and the map that you're looking at is very rare for January. It shows how the Storm Prediction Center issued a high risk for severe storms issued for Sunday, January 22nd. On average, the Storm Prediction Center will issue a high risk like this only a handful of times each year, and they are often centered on the Great Plains in May or June. Well, here we can see the result. On Saturday, a large complex of thunderstorms tapped into an unstable and very high wind shear environment loaded with a lot of high humidity air, and it fed on that air from Mississippi to the southeastern coast. When it was all said and done, there were 348 reports of severe weather, including 36 reports of tornadoes from both Saturday and Sunday. The damage was extensive, and so far 11 fatalities have been reported, although I have heard reports of up to 16 deaths. As you look at these images of the damage, this year the long-range forecasts suggest that 2017's severe weather season could see a return toward normal activity after 2 years of below-average hail and tornado reports. El Niño conditions for the last 2 springs and summers played a large part in suppressing severe storms, and last year was 30% below average in terms of tornado activity. Well, right now, the best guidance suggests that 2017 should see a return to normal activity, so start preparing for that potential now. Now, not including Sunday's totals, we are already more than double the typical number of tornadoes we have by this time of year. Now, please remember, it's early in the season, and the peak of the season is still months away, but I want to bring this to your attention early this year. Okay, well, January started off quite warm for the eastern half of the country, while the west has been just the opposite. The last week has seen the development of a large ridge over the Hudson Bay and made for a significant mid-January thaw for the eastern half of the country, while the screaming Pacific jet has done its best to erase the drought in California. This map shows the temperature anomalies over the last 30 days, and you can see the divided nature of the weather systems in the United States. With all of that moisture flowing across the country, it's no wonder that drought has improved so much almost everywhere over the last 30 days. Only a few pockets in the central states saw their drought worsen over that time period. But this map was made before the heavy rains of last week finished up, so I'm expecting some improvement. But in short, the reduction of drought throughout this winter is easing my worry that a dry start to the growing season could happen. Now, as winter wears on, we need to be watching the northern growing regions for snowpack that might lead to flooding, and there are a lot of fields across the Midwest right now that have some standing water in them. Now, I know it's very early, but we need to report on what we see, because as time goes on, if we continue to see these kind of weather patterns, it could spell for a very interesting start to the growing season. Well, this week we're watching a system track through the Central Plains on Monday through Thursday morning, and the latest GFS run produces significant snows north of this system in Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin through midweek. Now, the rest of the Corn Belt will be too warm to get any snow from this system, so expect another chance for more rain through the first half of the week in this region here. So this is the big feature that I'm watching, though, as we close out January and move into February. By the last weekend in January, we will see a large pattern shift, such that a trough digs into the eastern United States while a ridge forms out west. Now, this will shut off that fire hose of precipitation in California, while knocking temperatures back toward average, maybe even slightly below average for the eastern half of the country. Then beyond this, I tend to agree with the overall pattern described in this forecast by NOAA. Long-range models are projecting zonal flow across the United States, south of a broad trough feature in central Canada. Of course, it won't look like this every day of the month, but NOAA has captured the overall pattern projected by the longer-range models. If anything, though, the eastern United States may have a slight warm bias for February, which is a little different from what this map shows. Looking ahead towards spring weather, here is our latest projections for spring temperature anomalies. Our long-range forecasting system is keying in on a warm pattern for most of the southern half of the country, especially in the southwest. Now, this could signal an early start to spring, which favors a good growing season. At this time, we are not detecting any significant precipitation stresses across the United States. Now, one thing to watch, though, when considering U.S. grain markets is the snowpack and the cold temperatures this winter in the Dakotas. The last few springs have not had adverse weather conditions there, and that has resulted in very few prevent plant acres. But we need to be watching this region for troubles with flooding and a late plant this year, just something to keep an eye on. That forecast, though, might help with the typical spring price premium, making it a little bit higher than normal for May and June. Well, finally, as we've discussed, Brazil's growing season has largely avoided significant weather stress this year. The only trouble region has been Argentina, that had a wet October, a dry November and December, and then a wet January. Argentina has struggled with drought in some regions and flooded out fields in others. But overall, we're expecting South America on the whole to have another big crop for 2017. Well, as always, we at Agrible will bring the latest and best weather forecast information through our morning farm report so that you can efficiently plan your operations. We thank you for your attention, and we hope that you look forward to our next weather video update. Thank you.